The world's population is expected to grow from today's 6 billion to about 8 billion by 2030. Feeding all of these people and eliminating hunger will require advances in food production and distribution that enhance food supplies without damaging the environment. Agricultural biotechnology holds great promise for alleviating hunger and poverty, especially in developing countries and where conventional approaches have failed. It could greatly assist the development of more resilient crops and animals in the difficult environments where many of the world's poor live and struggle to survive. Promising results have already been achieved in the form of genetically modified, or GM, crop varieties resistant to conditions like drought, soil salinity, insect pests, and diseases, leading to an increase in crop successes. Elsewhere, various GM applications have helped reduce the dependence of resource-poor farmers on pesticides and fertilizers, thus benefiting the environment, human health, and the incomes of the farmers themselves. Most GM research, however, has been generated and controlled by large private organizations, which have so far mainly targeted rich commercial farmers who can afford their high-priced products. Nonetheless, there is some public sector work directed towards the needs of resource-poor farmers. In addition, most of the technologies and intermediate products developed through private sector research could be adapted to solve priority problems in the developing countries. But if the poor of these countries are to reap this potential, national and international action is needed to foster private-public partnerships that will promote access to these technologies at affordable prices. This is the main policy challenge for the future. Today, two opposing coalitions are locked in yet another heated debate, the GM evangelists versus the GM skeptics. The evangelists embrace GM technology and energetically endorse and promote its present and future benefits. The skeptics, on the other hand, warn that GM is new, unproven, and insufficiently studied and could instead do more harm than good. Here's their story. GM evangelists believe genetic modification is the answer for our future and that it should be widely promoted and endorsed. GM crops are pest-tolerant and herbicide-free, therefore helping to prevent environmental damage, especially from strong herbicides, and also decreasing the cost of farming and thus fresh produce too. In addition, the evangelists maintain that GM produces crops with higher nutritional values through higher protein quality and content, as well as increased levels of vitamins and micronutrients. Researchers at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology's Institute for Plant Sciences, for example, have created a strain of golden rice containing an unusually high content of beta-carotene, vitamin A, and increased iron content. GM evangelists also have other reasons for supporting GM, some of which are increased productivity, leading to higher incomes for producers and lower prices, new crop varieties for marginal areas, and increasing the sustainability of agriculture in poor farming communities. On the other hand, GM skeptics strenuously oppose GM for a variety of reasons. Chief above these is that GM technology is still largely unknown and untested. GM food may have as yet undiscovered health consequence, most worryingly an unknown genetic effect on humans. Where at first it was believed by scientists and researchers that the modified genes were destroyed during the digestion process, recently modified food genes have been found in the brains of some infant mice. This can be posed very real and significant dangers to infants and children, not to mention unknown medium and long-term risks for anyone who eats these foods. As so, the skeptics are untiring in their warnings that, as wonderful as GM food may at first seem, it is never safe to consume any food on which no long-term research has been conducted on. And in the case of genetically modified foods, also very little short-term studies. Genetic modifications done on the plants can have dramatic health risks and safety concerns, and yet there is no long-term risk of information available to allow us to properly make a considered choice or informed decision. Of course, the GM skeptics have numerous other objections to GM. Some of these are higher levels of plant estrogens, risks of negative interactions, higher fat content in some foods, and many more. They also oppose genetic modification from ethical and social standpoints. GM evangelists versus GM skeptics. The debate continues.
The Enviro Pig. More pig, less waste. Less phosphorus-filled waste, that is. No more choking up the water with oxygen-greedy algae. The fish will thank you, and so will the fishermen. Good for the earth, good for you. The Enviro Pig. More salmon? Then get GM salmon. Salmon that's genetically modified with a gene that keeps them growing, even when it's cold. GM salmon grows massive in half the time, tastes great just like slow salmon, and is oh so meaty. So why wait? Enjoy it now. GM salmon, more fish in less time. Super egg crushes cancer, defeats diabetes, totals tooth decay, all at your breakfast table. Our genetically modified chickens now lay super eggs filled with vitamins, proteins, and disease-fighting antiviral goodness. So don't be chicken. For whatever ails you, remember, it's a job for Super Egg. Available at a supermarket near you.
The health consequences of eating genetically modified food are largely unknown. Most food items that contain GMOs are unlabeled. Genetic engineering reduces genetic diversity. Plants with reduced genetic diversity could not handle drought, fungus invasions, or insects nearly as well as natural plants, which could have direct consequences for farmers and communities dependent on GMO crops for survival. Once the mutant genes are out of the bag, there is no going back.
We really do not want to mingle or
Wow, my mind is swimming with all this new information. Genetic modification. Two simple words, but gosh, when they are used together, they explode into so many issues and so many fervent viewpoints. How to decide and who will decide? If what the evangelists say is true and GM technology is here to stay, and if what the skeptics say is also true, that there are many unknowns and risks, then I guess whoever it is who finally decides, yes or no, or more or less, will need to be aware and responsible. And if he or she or we are not aware enough, maybe it then becomes our responsibility to ourselves, our families, and to our societies to find out more and to inform ourselves. Then maybe, if there are those who already are aware, if there are those who know the truth, not the over-enthusiastic hype or the paranoid fears, but just the simple, plain truth, then maybe it is their responsibility, and maybe one day even our responsibility, to help share the awareness so that everyone will become more informed and finally able to decide for themselves. So maybe our first decision then is to not over-rely on the opinions of others, but to choose to find out for ourselves. After all, the future is ours, isn't it?